was a fantastic experience when we went over to Carpathia. This picture actually, there's nothing to do with the next presentation, but we just love it. It is of the bison that we saw when we was there. So we was very, very lucky that we just stumbled.
It was actually chasing us. Yeah.
It was actually, yeah, so it was actually chasing us, which if we do another event, we might even bring the video to prove that that was the case. So anyway, so the next sort of session that we're going to do very briefly is just to combine really, or build really, what Hannah was talking about earlier, and in terms of the importance of embracing mess in our lives. And there's a couple of charities we're involved with who are doing exactly that. I won't dwell on this because I think Hannah covered it much better than I ever could do. But essentially, Rewilding Britain, within its manifesto, wants to see, as we all do, a mosaic of species-rich habitats restored and connected across at least 30% of Britain's land and sea by 2030. So how do we really get there? Well, there's two things we need to do. We've heard today from Hannah about what Hill's doing. We need the core rewilding sites, like NEP, and that probably gets us 5% of that 30 there. But what we then need is to build on that, and because a lot of the rewilding side, it is sort of philanthropy driven, but what we need to do is everybody needs to get involved in whichever capacity, whether that's supporting wilder national parks, the road edges need to be a little bit messier, and again, Hannah has some fantastic sort of pictures on that, and that really sort of picks up the slack for that other 25% to try and get to that all-important target. So one of the charities we support is WildEast. So what their objective is to return 250,000 hectares, or 20% of the land in East Anglia, to nature. So they created a map of dreams. You can sort of see it there. So that's obviously East Anglia, and all the committed parts of land to rewilding is sort of shown there, and that really ranges from a churchyard to a person's garden or to some agricultural land. It's really trying to get everybody involved, and we help support the launch of a new initiative called WildEdges, which basically calls on all landowners to add a modest amount of regenerating scrub and grass buffers to land edges, and particularly hedgerows. So really just adding those few extra metres, expanding those hedgerows to maybe 10 metres makes a huge difference around that. Just to give you a quick sort of sense of that, so WildEdges have kindly provided a few pictures for us. So this is what 136 hectare farm looks like today, very distressing, I would say. That's what it was in 1946. So 18 kilometres of hedgerow have been lost. That's about 7 hectares of space for nature gone, and with it, 250 tonnes of carbon was released into the atmosphere. This is what that same farm might look like with those 10 metres of wild edges. You bring that biodiversity back, you start to recapture that carbon. So WildEdges is an initiative, say, between WildEast, so partially funded by Consano, but also developed in accordance with the Land app. So delighted that Dan is here tonight, and he's going to give you a few comments on what they're doing there. So Dan, over to you.
Just to reiterate, thank you so much for the support. I'm Dan from the Lambda. We are a mapping platform used by farmers across the country, up into Scotland and Wales as well, but predominantly in England. And at the moment, we've got about 60% of English farmland now using us for mapping purposes. So what a better thing to do is try and encourage as many of them as possible to increase their connectivity. So throughout this slide, we're not really trying to promote all farms to be rewilded. We do need to eat some food as well, but what we're really trying to do is try and encourage as many of them as possible to improve their edge habitat, as Nick just said. So just really quickly, what is a wild edge? Nick's touched on it. It's just allowing existing hedgerows to get a bit wider. We are aiming for about 10 metres, but what we're really trying to do is take it off that management strategies that normally happen. So hedgerows traditionally are cut regularly, every 1 or 3 years, which doesn't enable those flowers to properly develop. And so by putting a hedge into a wild edge, we're trying to encourage for at least 30 years those hedges to be untouched. Alongside those hedges as well, we're trying to promote more scrubs, so blackthorn suckers coming through, or tussocky grasses, or any wildflowers you might have as well. But naturally what you get is you get a lot of surface area, and a lot of the species we're trying to encourage really enjoy those edge habitats. So Hannah, you mentioned quite a few of them earlier. But these edges themselves, creating lots of habitats, but fundamentally improving connectivity across farmland, because what you need is those rewilding sites that are happening in every county to enable species to flow through the network as well. And this is where the land app comes in. So thanks to some kind contributions and some more intelligent people than myself, we've derived an algorithm that can tell a farmer where they can put their wild edges. So how does it work? The land app has, over the last 2 years, we've actually been around since 2016, but the last 2 years we've been focusing on really quickly enabling farmers to understand what they've got. So we can now predict, or guess, what habitats they have using a combination of data sets, so satellite, ordnance survey, etc. And then based off that baseline, we can say what they should be doing. So we say, are you buffering your watercourse, yes or no? Is your hedgerow wide enough, yes or no? And a couple of other rules of thumb that we're just using across the whole country, but it really quickly enables the farmer just to see that future vision. And just for a couple of stats, so any farm in the UK now can create their own free wild edge. They can come onto the software and create a free account. And around 4 to 15% of every field is taken out of production and put into a wild edge, and that's getting towards that stat that Rewilding Britain are looking at as well. And you can see from this, just at a single farm level, that connectivity is really key. You're starting to open up these pathways for all the different charismatic species that we mentioned to pass through. And at a closer level, this is really granular data. This isn't just saying, roughly you can put it here. This is taking the big jigsaw puzzle, which is nature recovery, and telling that farmer how they can play their tiny little role, exactly where they might want to put the wild edge. And what you get when you get groups of farmers doing this at scale is you're not getting that isolated habitats that we're so used to seeing. So this is a farm in Cheshire that we're working with, actually an estate, 3,000 hectares, 21 different tenants have all now run their wild edges, and we're looking to find funding to actually create over 200 hectares of wild edges over the next couple of years. So that's me. Hopefully that was not too short, not too long, but thank you so much, and happy to talk afterwards.
Thank you very much, Dan. Just 2 minutes and then we're going to have a quick break. But I think WildEdges is not just about the land and the fields, agriculture, etc., etc. We can also have wild edges at the side of rivers. And we've been doing some work with Beaver Trust on exactly that. So sadly we haven't had a representative from Beaver Trust who can make it today, so I'm designated as speaker on that. So I do absolutely recommend you spend a bit of time, have a look at their website. There's some wonderful material on there, and certainly that would articulate what they're trying to do a lot better than I can. But I think just that their basic mission is to restore beavers, to regenerate our landscapes. Hannah touched on earlier the importance of beavers as a keystone species. There's a lot of communication and education needed to make that happen, and Beaver Trust are sort of leading the charge on that, and also on a lot of national policy issues as well. So what National Trust have done is develop a partnership called Riverscapes with the National Trust, the Woodlands Trust and the Rivers Trust, and essentially what it's trying to do is put wild edges alongside rivers, or what they call the river buffer zones. The best way to really understand what they're trying to do and some of the challenges around that is to watch a new documentary that's literally just only come out a few weeks ago. It's called On the Edge. It's a great watch. It's available on the Beaver Trust website and on YouTube as well. So please do spend, it's only 20-25 minutes, but well worth your time doing that. So with that, we've come to the end of Rewilding the Land. We will take maybe a 10-minute break or so now. So if you need to go leave the room, please try and be back in 10 minutes, and we will go over to the blue side and Rewilding the Sea. Thank you very much.